Biology Chapter 1, Part 2. And here we'll be looking at the classification. We'll be rounding up the features of living things, and we'll be looking at the classification, looking at the 5 kingdoms. We look at kingdom, we look at the 5 kingdoms: the plants kingdom, the animal kingdom, the prokaryote, the protists, and the fungi. So we're going to look at these 5 different kingdoms, okay? Now, before we do that, let's listen to this tutorial a little bit.
This video is on the features of living organisms. Organisms' features can be used to place them into appropriate kingdoms. There are 5 main kingdoms, which include animals, plants, fungi, prokaryotes, and protoctists, also known as protists. The main features used to place animals and plants into the appropriate kingdoms are features like whether they are multicellular or unicellular, whether they produce their own food via photosynthesis, or whether they contain a nucleus in their cells. It is a good idea to ensure you know a few different examples of features for each kingdom. Extended students, you also need to be able to name the main features used to place all organisms into each of the 5 kingdoms. Within the animal kingdom, there are many groups, but you need to know specifically about the main groups of vertebrates, such as reptiles, fish, amphibians, birds, and mammals, as well as the main groups of arthropods, which are a type of invertebrate. So we have arachnids, crustaceans, insects, and myriapods. Spend some time ensuring you know the features of each of these different groups and how to classify them. We will look at some worked examples now. Here we can see an image of a frog and their eggs. You are told that frogs are vertebrates. Using evidence from the question, you must classify the frogs into the correct group of vertebrates to which they belong. And then you need to describe the evidence that led you to this group. Make sure you use all the information provided, both from the text and the image. So you may already know the answer to the first part of this question by your general knowledge, but if not, you can use the information provided. You can see that the frog is in water and surrounded by eggs, which are helpfully labelled. So we can therefore suggest that the group is amphibians, as these animals lay their eggs in water. Fish also lay their eggs in water, but we cannot see any gills or scales on the frog, so we can assume this is an amphibian. Amphibians are often confused with reptiles, but these live on land and have dry, scaly skin. So we have also discussed the evidence that forms the second part of this question: eggs laid in water and smooth skin. Note that you could also receive a mark for mentioning that they don't have gills, scales, feathers, or fur. In summary, the features that living organisms have can help us classify them into one of the 5 kingdoms. You need to know the features that help us classify organisms within the different vertebrate groups, and also the invertebrate group of arthropods. Extended students, you also need to know the main features for all the 5 kingdoms. Don't forget to check out.
Okay, so welcome back. That's just a brief tutorial. Now let's take a look at the summary of that, what the tutorial was talking about. Then there are 5 kingdoms, okay? You know, we talked about the kingdom, the phyla or phylum, the class, the order, the family, the genus, and the species, right? In the classification in part 1 of this class. Now, in looking at the 5 kingdoms, in kingdom we look at 5, and we say the first one is the animal kingdoms, the plant kingdom, the fungi kingdom, the protist kingdom, and the prokaryote kingdom. Now we're going to look at the features of each one. Then let's start with the animal kingdom. In the animal kingdom, you classify all these things according to their kingdom, according to their characteristics, such as whether they are unicellular or multicellular organism, or whether they have nucleus in them or do not have nucleus, or whether they can move from place to place, so all of these characteristics you're going to consider in classifying each of the organisms and placing them into each of the kingdom. Now for the animal kingdom, they're usually multicellular organisms. Okay, bacteria are unicellular, like bacteria and Euglena and all of these, they're unicellular organisms. which makes them fall into another categories. Okay. Now, for the animal kingdom, they usually multicellular organisms, and the cells contain nucleus. They normally have nucleus. Animal cells contain a nucleus. Okay, but they don't have a cell wall or chloroplast. That characteristic only belongs to plants. Plants have a cell wall. Animals only have cell membrane. They don't have a cell wall. So the animal cell don't have a cell membrane, don't have a cell wall, and they don't have a chloroplast. So whenever you see a chloroplast cell wall, that belongs to the plant kingdom. Okay, so animals feed on organic substances and every other living things. They eat organic things. Is that okay? So here is a simple cell, animal cell. You have the nucleus, you have the cell membrane, the surface, the outer surface, the boundary. It's called the cell membrane. You have the mitochondria, the site for energy release in the body of the cell. And then we have all these tiny greenish or bluish coloration, which is called the cytoplasm, where the metabolic activity do take place. Then you have the ribosomes, the endoplasmic reticulum, the ribosome, which is also called the rough endoplasmic reticulum, where the site for protein synthesis takes place in the cells of the animal. Now let's take a look at the main features of plants. Plants, they are also multicellular. They are not unicellular. They are multicellular, but their cells contain nucleus also. Not only nucleus. In this time around, they contain the nucleus, they contain the chloroplast, and they contain the cellular cell wall. They contain the cellular cell wall. This chloroplast and cellular cell wall, animals don't have it. The cell of the animal don't have it. They all feed by photosynthesis. The whole process is photosynthesis, and they're able to manufacture their own food. Plants manufacture their own food, the animal cannot manufacture their own food. Now let's take a look at a plant cell, a typical plant cell. Here you see the cell membrane is inside. The wall is called the cell wall. The cellular cell wall is the thickness that covers the membrane. Okay, the big thickness that covers the membrane is the wall. It's called the cell wall, the cellular cell wall. Okay, the outmost layer of this one, this dark blue coloration is the cell wall. Now you have the inner tiny lines that encompass every other thing inside the cell, inside the plant cell. It's called the cell membrane. And then we have the chloroplast that contains the green pigment, the chlorophyll that traps the sunlight energy for photosynthesis to take place in the plant. We have the nucleus that contains the food for the organisms. You have the mitochondria or mitochondrion, which is the site for energy releasing by respiration in the cell. You have the cytoplasm where metabolic activity do take place. You have the permanent vacuum. Permanent vacuum, you see in the exam past paper we saw when they talk about permanent vacuum. Permanent vacuum, they ask whether animal or plant in the biology question, IGCSE question. When you see a permanent vacuum, large permanent vacuum, it becomes plant, it's not animal. Animal have little or no vacuum, okay? Now let's properly look at the characteristics of the animal kingdom. And the animal kingdom is divided into two main groups. It's divided into two main groups. So we can simply say the animal kingdom is divided into two. Okay, we can say the animal kingdom is divided into two main groups. The first one is if you have animal here, we can split it into two groups. Okay, the first one is called the vertebrate. Animal is divided into two. You have the vertebrate and the invertebrate. The invertebrate nowadays are called the arthropod. They are called the arthropods. So you have the vertebrate. The vertebrate themselves, vertebrates are divided to about 5. The vertebrates are divided to about 5. So we need to have a brief note on this, okay? The vertebrates are divided to 5 groups. And then you have what you call the invertebrates. Either you call them the invertebrate or you call them the arthropods. The arthropod consists of arachnids, crustacea, insects, and so on and so forth, invertebrate. Okay, so these are the two groups in animal. The invertebrate we call the arthropoid. Please take note. In the exam paper, they will be using the word arthropoid. They will be using the word arthropoid for the invertebrate. They may not mention invertebrate. Arthropoid, okay? These are other organisms that are smaller, arthropoids, and have other characteristics that we're going to describe, okay? These are the arthropoids, okay? So these vertebrate animal organisms are divided to 5. Like you have the birds, the bird group. You have the amphibia, like the frog, amphibians. You have the amphibia. Okay. Amphibia. You have the reptile. You have the reptiles. You have the reptiles. You have the mammal. We've not written the most important one, the mammals. You have the mammals. You have the mammals. You have the mammals. You have the mammals. And then one more. We have birds. We have amphibia. We have reptiles. We have mammals. One last one remaining for the vertebrate of the okay, the birds, the amphibians, the reptiles, the mammals, and one other one. Okay, there are 5 in the group. There are 5 for the vertebrate. There are 5: the bird, the reptile, the amphibia, the fish. Okay, the 5th one is the fish. Okay, we have the fish. So we have to always remember all of this fish. The fish group, okay? So each one we want to look at their characteristics of each one. Then under the arthropod, you have the crustacea, arachnid, you have the arachnid, okay? The second group of an arachnid. You have the crustacea, and so on and so forth, okay? Crustacea. Okay, and so on and so forth. You have there about 4 or 5 subgroup of this one. Now let's quickly take a look at the mammals as it were. Now the first one, which is the mammal, the main features, and we give example. What are the features? They have hair, 4 in their body. The mammal have 4, like goat, sheep, cow, cattle, human beings. We are in the mammal group. Okay, we are in the mammal group. They have 4 or hair in their body, okay, which may enable them to withstand cold, in cold regions, and they have placenta. They're able to carry reproduction and breed their young ones alive. They have young feed on milk from the mammary glands. When the young one, they take milk from their mother, and they grow up with that. And then the external ear, they have external ear, the lobe, the external eardrum and everything, and the external ear that enables sound to travel into the system. Then they are endothermic in nature. They are endothermic. Okay, they absorb heat. Endothermic means they take in heat into their body. Okay, they're able to take in heat into their body. Okay, so this is the mammal. Example is horse, dog, squirrel, human being, cow, cattle, sheep, whatever. All these are called mammal. Now we go to the second group, which is called the birds. The birds include the skin is covered with feather. If you look at the bird, like the chicken we buy, we eat, the skins are covered with feathers. They have feathers, and they have 2 legs and 2 weeks. They have 2 legs and 2 weeks. So you should be able to. This is a summary note which you should have in your notebook. Okay, summarized note you should have in your notebook. It has 2 legs and 2 weeks instead of 4 lips. Okay, they have 2 legs and 2 lips. They lay eggs with hard shells on the land. Okay, they lay eggs on the land, or like some that like amphibians and fishes that lay eggs in water. The birds, they lay their eggs on land. Okay, you have to know that. They have a beak. They have a long mouth called the beak. Okay, they used to pick something when needed. Then they are also endothermic. They absorb heat into their system. So a good example is parrot, blue teeth, and eagle. Any type of bird okay, fall in this category. Number 3, we have the reptile. The reptiles, they have a dry, fixated or fixed skin or a scale on their body. The reptile, they are out like you see alligator, you see the crocodile, you see reptiles. Okay, they have a dry, very strong scale, okay, on their skin and as their outer layer, and they lay eggs with rubbery shells on land. They also lay eggs on land. The reptiles, they lay eggs on land. A good example is snake. Snake fall in the reptile group. Turtle, they fall in the reptile group, and iguana, they fall in the reptile group. Then number 4, amphibious. Amphibious, they have a smooth, moist skin. They have a smooth, like the frog. Or like the reptile. Reptiles have a very rough, tough, hard skin called the scale. Okay, but this one, the amphibious, they have a smooth, moist skin. Okay, and then the adults usually live on the land, so they have lungs. Though they live in the water, but the adults one, they live on the land, so they have lungs for normal respiration process. Then they have they live in water. The small ones, they live in water, so they have gills also. They live in water, so they have gills. They lay eggs without shell in the water. They lay their eggs without shell. A good example is frog, toad, and newts. Newts, always remember, frog, toad, and newts, other the amphibian. The last but not the least for this vertebrate animal is the fish. The fish, they lose wet scale on the skin. They have a kind of a loose wet scale on their skin, and they have gills to breathe. They don't have lungs, they have gills for respiration, and then they lay eggs without shell in the water. They lay egg without shell. Good example is the flounder, the grouper, so on and so forth. Okay, so this is for the vertebrate. You can see the summary diagram. We have the reptiles, like a good example is snake, okay, snake, and so on and so forth. You have the fish, a good example, any type of fish like shark, tuna, whale, and all of this stuff. Then you have the amphibious like they have a moist, slippery skin. They lay eggs in water and so on and so forth. We have the mammal like the cow. They have milk. They feed their young ones with milk. You have the birds, birds which have feathers and wings to fly. Some of them can fly. Okay, now for the invertebrate, we say the invertebrates are animals without backbone. Remember, the vertebrates are animals with backbone, the backbone, okay? The animals with backbones are the vertebrate, the one we studied, the 5 group we studied. The fish, the mammal, the reptile, the amphibia, and the birds. All of them, they are vertebrate. Now, the invertebrates are those without backbone, like what we call the arthropods. The arthropods, okay? They are the arthropod group. The first among them is called the myriapod. The myriapod, the insect, the arachnid, and the crustacean. There are 4 that you're going to study under this invertebrate or the arthropods. Either you call them invertebrate or you call them arthropoid. Okay. Now, the first of the arthropod or the first of the invertebrate animal, they are called what? They are called the myriapod. A good example of the features of the myriapod is that their body consists of many segments. Their body have different segments. Okay, their body have different segments, and each segment contains at least 1 pair of jointed legs. Each of the segment has a pair of jointed legs, meaning 1 leg on the right, 1 leg on the left. Every segment has 1 leg on the right, 1 leg on the left, 1 leg on the left. So you can begin to imagine which type of organism or which type of invertebrate without a bone. These animals, they don't have bone. That's why they are called the arthropods or they are called the invertebrate. So you can begin to imagine. A good example is centipede, millipede. You can check Google for the image of centipede, millipede. Okay, centipede, millipede is a good example of myriapods. Centipede, millipede are a good example of myriapods. Number 2, we talk about the insects. The insects. Now, the insect, they have a 3-part body. They have the head, the thorax, and the abdomen. They have 3 pairs of jointed leg. Okay? They have 3 pairs of jointed leg. They have 2 pairs of wings. 2 pairs of wings. Or both pairs may be vestigial. Okay? Then they have 1 pair of antenna. They have like antenna. Like a good example is butterfly. They have antenna in their head. They have antenna for signal, for direction, and for everything. So a good example is butterfly. Any other insect that you know, any other insect that you know, okay, fall under this category, like grass cutter, all of this is caterpillar. They all fall under this category. They have their bodies divided to 3: the head, the thorax, and the abdomen, and they have pairs of jointed legs, and they have antenna. Okay, so this is the insect. Now the fourth one is the arachnid. Arachnid have two-part body. They have what you call this cephalothorax and the abdomen. So they have the thorax and the abdomen. And they have 4 pairs of jointed leg. Okay, a good example is the spider. You hear Spider-Man, it falls into the arachnid group. The spider falls into the arachnid group. Then the last one is crustacea, like this one, the crab. You know crab? The crustacea, the crab. The crab. They have a very strong scale, and they have a very strong scale. So they are called this crustacea. Arachnids are like the spider. They have 2 part body, and they don't have antenna. Arachnids don't have antenna, but myriapods, they have antenna, right? Myriapods have antenna. A good example of myriapod is millipede, centipede. Insects are like butterfly, grass, or hopper, and all of these other insects that you have, termites. All of them falls under that category. Then arachnids are like the 2 part body. They have the thorax and the abdomen. And a good example is they have 4 pairs of jointed legs, and they don't have antenna. And a good example is the spider, and so on and so forth. Then the crustaceans, they have more than 4 pairs of jointed legs, and they have choking exoskeleton system, because the whole body is exoskeleton. The whole body, like a crab. If you ever see a crab, the whole body is exoskeleton, meaning the outer, there's no, endoskeleton. Endoskeleton means the bone is inside, or the scale is inside. Exo means the scale is outside, like a frog, not a frog, sorry, like a crab. If you see a crab, the scale, the hard body is outside, the flesh is inside. Or like mammals, the bone is inside, the flesh is outside. Okay, but for crab, the scale is outside, like the bone. They don't really have a bone to say, it's like a scale. It's outside, and the flesh is inside. So these are arachnids. So this is the group. You can see them, the arachnids. Look at the arachnids. Remember, we said the arachnids are like the spider, insect, every other insect that you know, that looks like insect. The spider, and so on and so forth. They have eight legs, 2 body. They have 8 legs. This body 1, this body 2. Okay, this is a crustacea. The outside body is like strong. The inside is where the flesh is, like crab. And then this is insect. They have wings. Insects have wings. They have 6 legs. Their body parts, 1 pair of antenna. They have 1 pair of antenna. Okay, then these are myriapods. Myriapods are like the centipede, millipede, with every segment have many segmented parts, and every segment has pairs of legs. Okay, so that's for this first part. Let's take a look at the last part of this class, which we end this class for us. Okay, so before we continue the second part of this class, where we look at the extended part, let's quickly take a look at, listen to this tutorial.
This video is on the topic of the features of living organisms and is intended for students studying the extended content only. You need to know some specific examples of organisms within the 5 kingdoms and also viruses. Let's start with the main features used to place organisms into each of the 5 kingdoms: animals, plants, fungi, prokaryotes, and protoctists. We'll focus on fungi, prokaryotes, and protoctists, as these are a little more tricky to tell apart. Fungi can be single-celled, like yeast cells, or multicellular, like mushrooms. They are eukaryotic, meaning they have nuclei, and they have a cell wall, like plant cells. This is made of something different, and they do not photosynthesize, so are different to plants. They also feed off of dead or decaying matter instead of eating like us. Prokaryotes are generally bacteria, and they are single-celled or unicellular. They do not have a nucleus in their cell, and so are called prokaryotic, and are therefore very different to animal and plant cells. They do have a cell wall, but it is again different to plant cells. Lastly, we have protoctists, which are sometimes called protists. These are organisms such as amoeba, and they tend to be unicellular, so they are not like plants or animals. They differ from bacteria in that they have a nucleus, but they are different to fungi, as they can also photosynthesize like plants. As you can see, each kingdom has its own unique features that make it distinct from other kingdoms. Let's discuss viruses now, which again are different altogether and not even part of the 5 kingdoms, as they are not classified as living organisms. The reason for this is that they are basically just genetic material, a bit like DNA, surrounded by a protein coat. They can only carry out their processes if they are inside of a host cell. For this reason, they infect living organisms and are not considered living themselves. Along with the examples discussed here, you need to know 2 specific plant examples, which you can read about in our revision notes below. Let's take a look at some examples of exam-style questions to make sure you can distinguish between the kingdoms. Here you are given 4 statements about an organism, and you need to determine the kingdom that the organism belongs to. You are told that the organism is unicellular, can produce sugars by photosynthesis, has a eukaryotic nucleus, and no cell wall. It is a good idea to try and work out which kingdoms this organism does not belong to. So we can eliminate the plant and animal kingdoms as it is unicellular. We can eliminate prokaryotes as it has a nucleus. And we can also eliminate yeasts as it does not have a cell wall. That leaves us with Protoctis as our answer. Here is a second worked example. You can see an image of a virus and you are asked to describe the features that distinguish viruses from living organisms of the 5 kingdoms. Note that the virus image is unlabelled, so we can infer that we need to describe these features that would have otherwise been labelled for us. We can recall that viruses consist of genetic material contained within a protein coat. They do not contain any other organelles or features of cells such as cell membranes or walls. And they survive by being inside of the cells of living organisms. Remember that viruses are not classed as living organisms and so are not part of the 5 kingdoms. In summary, this video is intended for students studying the extended syllabus. Within the 5 kingdoms, each has their own features that distinguish them from other kingdoms. You need to know examples for each of the 5 kingdoms, including animals and plants, and also fungi, prokaryotes and protoctists. You also need to recall details about 2 plant groups not discussed here, but details are found in our revision notes. Viruses are not classified into the 5 kingdoms and consist of a protein coat containing genetic material. Don't forget to check out.
Okay, quickly, we've gone through the revision. So we've studied the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom also a little bit, then the fungi, the protostis, and the prokaryotes. Now, let's take a look at these last 3 and then look at the virus. Now, the main features of fungi include the mold and the mushroom and yeast. So the good example, okay, that you can give for fungi is the mold, the mushroom, and the yeast, okay. Usually they are multicellular, okay, they are multicellular. So when you see a unicellular, meaning it's not a fungi, it's not a fungi. So these are the features there. The main feature is that they are usually multicellular, right? Now they have cell nuclei and they have cell cell wall not made from the cellulose. Okay, they have what you call cells have nuclei and cell wall not made from the cellulose. Then they do not photosynthesize, meaning they don't make their own food, but they feed on the saprophytic food of the dead organisms. Okay, they feed on the dead organisms or dead materials. Okay, so they are parasitic in a way. Okay, that's their mode of feeding. So let's take a look at the basic fungi cell. So they have a nucleus, they have cell membrane, they have ribosome. So if you look at this, animals have this, animals have this, animals have this. They have cytoplasm animal, they are mitochondria. Okay, they are mitochondria. Okay. Now the cell wall contains chitin rather than cellulose. So their cell wall is not cellulose. You know, for plant, it's cellulose cell wall. For fungi, it's called chitin. Okay, so that's that for fungi cell. That's a typical one for fungi cell. Now let's take a look at the main features of all protostis. The the fourth one in the kingdom, the protostis. A good example is amoeba, paramecia, and plasmodium. Each one you must remember the example. For protostis, a good example is amoeba, paramecia, and plasmodium. Amoeba, paramecia, and plasmodium. They are always in the exam paper. Okay. Now let's take a look at. Most of them are unicellular. One of the features of protostis. Most of them, they're usually unicellular, but some are multicellular. Very few ones are multicellular, and all they have nucleus. They have nucleus. Okay. They have nucleus, and some may have cell walls and chloroplast. Some. So as if those ones that have cell walls and chloroplast is as if they are plants, but they are not plants. Okay, because plants are not unicellular at all. Plants are not unicellular. So since they are unicellular and they have nucleus, cell walls, and chloroplast, it makes them what? It makes them protostis. Okay. Some protostis photosynthesize because some of them that have chloroplast. Before you can photosynthesize, you can manufacture your own food. You must have a chloroplast. So those that have chloroplast, they will be able to make their own food. Is that okay? Now here is the comparison between these two. You say two examples of protostis cells, and there's difference between them. Okay, this first one looks like the amoeba cell. Amoeba does not have a fish shape. The first one is an amoeba cell, and the second one is paramecia. The second cell is like a paramecium cell. So you can see the difference between them. They are not exactly same. Okay, they are not exactly same. What they share in common is this one. What they have different is, like you can see, this one has ribosome, nucleus, okay, food vacuum. This one does not have food vacuum. This one does not have the food vacuum. Is that okay? Okay. Now let's go to two examples of protostis cell. Main features. Okay, these are the two examples of protostis cell we described. The last one is the prokaryotes. A good example of prokaryotes is bacteria and blue-green algae. Okay, the blue-green algae you see on top of water. The algae that covers the water, sometimes the blue-green colorish substance that cover the water that makes the plants inside the water not get enough oxygen is an example of prokaryotes. And the bacteria are examples of prokaryotes. Is that okay? And they are, one of their characteristics is that they are unicellular. They are what? They are unicellular. And the cells, they have cell wall. They have cell wall as if they are plant cells, but they are unicellular. Okay? So let's take a look at the example of a bacterial cell. A bacterial cell has this thing for swimming. It has a ribosome. It has a plasmid. And that's why bacteria, this plasmidity or plasmid is what makes it to be able to be used for biotechnology or for genetic engineering. Okay, if you see plasma paper, you see this plasmid enables it to be used for genetic engineering, for mutation and genetic engineering. The bacteria, the yeast, all of these things, they have plasmid, and that makes it to be able to be used for genetic engineering. There you have a circular loop of DNA. They have DNA in them. The bacteria, the prokaryotes, they have DNA, and they have protein and DNA. Okay, they have cell wall made from peptidoglycan, and they have cytoplasm. So this is a typical bacterial cell. Now the plants, let's quickly round up with the plants. We started with the animal. Okay, the plants, at least some plants are multicellular. Okay, and most of the plants are green, and they are caused by the presence of chlorophyll, which is the green pigment that is found in the chloroplast of the cell that traps the sunlight energy for photosynthesis to take place. The plant kingdom include organisms such as the fern and the flowery plant. Plant kingdom is divided to two. Okay, plant kingdom is divided into two. This is for animal. The plant is divided into two. The first one is the flowery plant. flowery plant. Flowery plant. And the second one is called fence. Second group is called for plant, the second group is called fence. Okay? So for flowery plants, we're going to also do a brief study on the flowery plants. So the plants are divided into two types. You have the fern and the flowery plants. Okay, the ferns, they have leaves called the fronds, and they do not produce flowers. They instead they reproduce by spores. Okay, that's their mode of reproduction. They reproduce by spores. They do not produce flowers. That's why they are not called flowery plants. Now, let's take a look at the flowery plants itself. Flowery plants, they reproduce sexually by means of flowers and seeds. They reproduce sexually by means of flower, and the seeds are produced inside the ovary. The seeds are found produced in the ovary, right? And they are found at the base of the flower, looking like rice. Like rice plant is a flowery plant. Is that okay? And every other flower you know that has peptides, septides, that traps insects, and so on and so forth, they are all flowery plants. In flowery plant, some are monocotyledon and some are dicotyledon. Okay? Some are di means many cotyledon, mono means one cotyledon. Now for flowers from monocotyledon, they contain peptides in multiples of 3. Okay? While the ones from dicotyledon, they have multiples of 4 or multiple of 5. Now let's take a look at the leaf part of the plant. The leaves from monocotyledon, they have parallel leaf. They have monocotyledon, they have parallel leaves like this. The lines are parallel. Okay? The leaves from monocotyledon, they have parallel leaf veins. Their veins are parallel. Okay? While the one from dicotyledon, they have reticulated leaf vein. This is a dicotyledon. The veins are reticulated. While this one from monocotyledon, the veins of the leaf are parallel. Is that okay? Okay, so this is an example of monocotyledon, like maize, corn. It's a monocotyledon. And then you have every other leaves like cocoa, they are dicotyledon. Okay, so now let's go to the last one. We've studied the 5 types of kingdom. The last one is the virus. The last one is the virus. Okay. Virus does not belong to the 5 kingdom. Virus do not belong to the 5 kingdom because viruses do not live on their own, do not have life on their own. So a virus is categorized with a DNA and protein coating. It has a protein coating like this envelope. These are the protein coating and a strand of DNA. This one inside is the strand of the DNA. This is the envelope that covers the virus. Okay? And this is the strand of the DNA, or you can call DNA or RNA, this one. This helix. Single helix. It's not a double helix. Okay? This is a strand of a DNA or RNA. This is the envelope that covers the virus. And these are called the DNA protein codes. These are called the protein codes. So this is how you find it in the exam paper. Is that okay? So with this, the viruses are not part of any of the 5 kingdoms we studied. The 5 kingdoms are animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, the fungi, the protists, and the prokaryotes. These are the 5 kingdoms, and we should be able to recognize them. And the virus is the 6th, but it's not called number 6. It's just one of those things you need to study that do not fall into that group. They do not have their life of their own. They have to be in a host to live. If a virus do not find a host, it will not live. Okay, do not carry out the 7 life processes. So until you find the body of organism in order to live. And they have what we call the genetic material, the RNA or DNA. So in case you are asked to describe a virus in the exam. So with this, we come to the end of our today's class. Thank you for joining us.